Chapter 19. Leah slept fitfully, waking with sudden starts of remembering that Rebecca was dead, cried herself back to sleep. Early in the morning she gave up on sleep, dressed in dark, somber clothes, and drove out to the farm. When she arrived, the yard was already full of black carriages. Realizing that her red convertible stuck out like a sore thumb, Leah left it at the very edge of the property. On the far end from where the accident had happened, at the site of the accident, Leah saw that every scrap of wood had been cleaned up. All that remained as witness to the horrible event were the smashed rows of corn. Leah walked toward the farmhouse. Even so early in the morning, the air seemed stagnant. The heat rose off the ground in waves, making her hair stick to the back of her neck. She found Charity in the front yard, sitting beside the wagon wheel, hugging her knees, her eyes red and puffy. Leah sat down beside her. "Hi, I couldn't stay away any longer. I miss Rebecca, Leah. All night I kept waking up and looking over to her side of the bed. It was empty. Only Rose sat up on the pillow, like she was waiting for Rebecca to come to bed. I could not bear to even look at her doll." Fresh tears pooled in Leah's eyes as Charity talked. "I didn't sleep much either," Leah sniffed hard. "Will you tell me what's going to happen? I've never been to an Amish funeral. The ones I've been to have been for old people. They are expected to die." Charity dabbed at her eyes with her white handkerchief. "But I will tell you what to expect." She sat up straighter. The Amish undertaker had taken Rebecca's body from the hospital. Papa and Ethan and Opal worked most of the night to build her coffin in the barn. Usually coffins are made by others, but Papa wanted to make Rebecca's with his own hands. Leah stared off toward the barn, imagining the sad sound of hammers banging along in the night. Charity continued. "Other men picked up the coffin this morning and took it to the undertaker's. The hearse will return with it this afternoon for the viewing." Suddenly it struck Leah that everyone in the community would be arriving to see Rebecca's body lying in the coffin. She shuddered, not certain she could participate in the ritual. "Many people are helping us now," Charity said. "The men are doing the chores, the women are cleaning the house and setting up for the funeral tomorrow morning. Tomorrow we will have a church service here. Then we will go to the graveyard at the back of our farm for the burial. Afterward, people will come back here for a meal and help us clear the house of the extra chairs and things. Then everybody will go home." And life will go on, Leah thought. Chores would be done, cows milked, chickens fed, gardens tilled. Rebecca would be under the ground and life would go on. She turned to Charity. "You're burying her on the farm?" "Our family has lived here for many years. In time all of us will be buried on this land. It is ours." Leah recalled movies in which cemeteries were portrayed as dark, creepy places where the dead haunted the living. But here, in this land of the Amish, cemeteries were merely resting places for loved ones. There was nothing ghoulish about cemeteries. "What should I do?" "Just be with us." Leah plucked a flower from the flower bed and rolled it between her fingers. "Can I send flowers for her funeral?" Charity shook her head. "That is not done. Amish bury plainly, just as we live." "Where's Ethan?" All at once Leah ached to see him, to touch him. "He is at the family cemetery. He is digging our sister's grave." Leah followed Charity's direction to the family cemetery located beyond the barn and the woods at the back side of the property. She passed the garden and remembered the first day she'd come to the farm and how Rebecca had run to meet her. Leah turned her head. She passed the chicken coop and the barn, remembered the day of the water fight, and felt a lump the size of a fist clog her throat. Leah skirted the woods and saw a short white picket fence marking off an enclosure of well-kept grass. Within she saw headstones. She entered by a small gate, covered with an arched arbor, heavy with jasmine and morning glory vines. She heard the sound of shovels digging in earth and crossed slowly to a pit. There, deep in the hole, stood Ethan, Simeon, and Jonah. Emotion almost overcame Leah as she watched them scooping up soil and tossing it up to a pile heaped alongside the grave. "Ethan," she said quietly. He looked up. Sweat poured down his face. His homespun shirt was limp and soaked. "Leah, what are you doing here?" I wanted to see you." Ethan glanced at Jonah, who said, "Go." Ethan came up a ladder and swung over to the top edge of the hole. Leah stepped closer, but he stepped away. "I am dirty. I will mess you up." Dirt clung to his work boots and hands. Why are you doing this?" "I want to. It is the very least I can do for her." Leah realized that this was Ethan's way of easing his grief, of sweating off his own pain. The physical labor was good for him. She read it in his expression. "Is there something I can do to help?" she said. "Can I bring you water?" Ethan shook his head. "We have water with us." Leah shrugged and glanced around the cemetery. Whose is the earliest grave?" "Joseph Longacre. He was the infant son of my great-great-grandparents. He died one winter of scarlet fever. Sad, Leah said. When babies die, it's really sad. Dying is part of living, Ethan said. Nothing can bring my sister back to this life. Now she lives with God in heaven. I know baby Joseph is playing with her. Leah wanted to believe it too. How she wished to have Ethan's simple faith, but she was angry at God. He should have allowed Rebecca to live. I guess I should go back to the house, Leah said. We'll not be much longer, Ethan told her. I will clean up and see you there. Many will come this afternoon and evening. Leah returned to the house and stayed close to Charity. Late in the afternoon, Leah watched through the kitchen window as a lone black horse pulled a simple springboard wagon into the front yard. In the back of the wagon lay an unadorned child-sized pine coffin with 2 long poles attached to it. 6 men, including Ethan, stepped up and pulled the coffin off the wagon, shouldered the poles, and carried it up onto the porch, in through the front parlor and into the small room at the back of the house. Leah followed Charity and the other family members into the room. A room swept meticulously clean, with only a table to hold the coffin, a single chair, and a few candles. Both fascinated and repelled, Leah watched as the coffin was set upon the table turned bier. The window in the room was open, but without fans the room felt stifling. Leah left the small, airless room. She pressed herself against a wall, hoping not to faint from either the heat or her burden of grief. Back in the kitchen, she splashed water on her face from the hand pump over the sink. Minutes later, she felt Ethan's touch on her back. More people are coming, he said, looking out the window, to pay their respects. Leah saw buggies pulling into the yard, a yard cleaned, weeded, and clipped to receive friends and neighbors at its very best. Leah murmured, I'm not sure I can go in there and look at her, Ethan. It does not matter. Only her body is in the coffin. Her spirit is with the Lord. There was a chair in the room. Why? We will keep an all-night watch. It is our custom, never to leave the body alone. She wanted to ask why, but decided he probably didn't know. That he rarely knew the ways of their customs, only that it was always done that way. She looked back to Ethan. I think I should go. You do not have to. Leah shook her head. Yes, I do. I do not belong here. I'm the only English. That should not trouble you. Not trouble you. Tears filled her eyes. But it does, Ethan. It does. Ethan followed Leah outside. The undertaker had gone, but the memory of where his wagon had stood forced Leah to make a wide arc in the yard before she headed toward the road and her parked car. Ethan caught her elbow at the edge of the yard. What will you do, Leah? Where are you going? Back to my apartment, I guess. She wiped under her eyes. I should start packing. There was a message on my answering machine from my mother when I got in last night. She and Neil are in Los Angeles and will be flying to Indianapolis today. She plans to come help me get my stuff home next week. Ethan stared down at her. I had forgotten. You will be leaving, but so soon. I will miss you. The last was said haltingly, as if he was pulling the words from deep inside. You know, 2 weeks ago the thought of leaving was driving me crazy. Leah looked over his shoulder at the rambling farmhouse. Now, well, I'm sort of glad. It would be hard to stay, to expect to see Rebecca whenever I came out here. Her voice wavered. It's best this way. I'll go back to my world, you'll stay in yours. You will always be a part of my world, Leah, because you will always be a part of me. Her gaze flew to his face. His clear blue eyes were serious, tinged with grief. Was some of it for her, for them? Leah choked down a sob, holding it at bay with steely resolve. I have to go now. I don't think I can take any more sadness, Ethan. I can't. He caught her arm once more. Will you be here tomorrow? Leah nodded. I have to come. I have to tell Rebecca goodbye. Yes, he said. We will all tell her goodbye. Yes. Yet as Leah drove off, she couldn't imagine watching the plain, undersized coffin being lowered into the cool, dark ground. She drove to town, weeping all the way.